We have three restaurants that set on top of our ski hill. We're kind of set up backwards, and we have a saying that you couldn't lose your kids here if you wanted to.
Welcome to the storm. I'm your host, Stuart Winchester, repping Michigan today as we zoom in on a great little spot in my home state. Go Blue. You can see me repping my Wolverines if you're watching this podcast at stormskiing.com or on YouTube at Storm Ski Journal. I highly recommend that you do that. The video version is awesome. Lots of extra goodies in there. Photos, videos, gives a lot of extra context. No matter how you're consuming the storm, thank you so much for being here. If you're new here, I want you to know the podcast is just a small part of the storm. The core of this whole operation is the Storm Skiing newsletter, where I am exploring the world of lift-served skiing all year round. There are free and paid versions of that newsletter, and it is my paid subscribers who make it possible for me to do the storm as my full-time job, and to chase my mission of consistently putting out the best lift-served skiing newsletter in the entire world. So thank you very much to each one of you for being part of that. If you would like to support the Storm's mission of independent ski journalism, you can do that by clicking over to stormskiing.com and signing up for the free or paid versions of the newsletter. Check it out free first. If you want more, upgrade. You can also follow the Storm on X and Instagram at Storm Ski Journal. And of course, you can rep the Storm by picking up a hat, hoodie, sticker, t-shirt, or more at the Storm store, stormskiing.myshopify.com. You know who else supports the Storm's mission of independent ski journalism? My partners at Aspenware. Now, imagine a future where 99% of your mountain products are booked online. Aspenware can help you do that. Aspenware is the leading e-commerce solution purpose-built for the ski industry. They create customized e-commerce platforms that ensure resort guests spend more time doing what they love and less time standing in lines. Utilizing the team's extensive industry experience, Aspenware strives to make the resort booking process seamless with a mobile-friendly, simplified sales process that anticipates the needs of customers at every part of their journey. Aspenware is based in Denver, Colorado, and stands apart as an innovator. They understand the value that software and technology bring to a mountain resort, and they strive to create solutions so good they seem invisible. Visit aspenware.com to learn more. All right, time for episode 216 of the Storm Skiing Podcast. Barry Owens, General Manager of Treetops, Michigan. My guest today has been General Manager of Treetops Resort, Michigan since 2010. Treetops offers 90 acres of ski terrain on 223 vertical feet, served by 3 triple chairs and 2 carpets, and averages 140 inches of snowfall per winter. The ski area is part of a 3,300 acre resort with 5 championship-level golf courses. Prior to taking the top job at Treetops, he was president of the nearby Garland Golf Resort for 24 years. Barry Owens is my guest. Barry, welcome to the Storm. So fired up to connect. Northern Michigan is one of my favorite places in the world. Repping my Michigan colors today. How is life up north today, Barry?
Life is good. Life is good. We're having a great start to the summer here, and it's all good. It's all good.
Well, I always hate to start on the bad news, but before we started, we were chatting about this ice storm that hit northern Michigan late in the ski season. What happened, Barry? How did that go down, and how are you dealing with it?
So it went down right at the end of March. It was 2 full days in succession that the area. There's 11 county area, so it just wasn't us. It was some of our compatriots in the ski industry were impacted too. I've never seen anything like it in my career, and the amount of devastation, and primarily due to trees falling, and they just fell straight down. It's funny. I can't even begin to tell you how many trees we lost, but all the branches fell off. And
Wow.
so the cleanup's been immense. I know right at the beginning, the first part we had to do was figure out how to get into buildings.
Hmm.
We had since we're a pretty good sized property, we had like 16 miles of roads and trails and stuff like that just to clear so we could get around and get to areas.
Hmm.
And people were out of power and communications anywhere from 5 to 3 weeks in the region. We were completely dark. We couldn't answer a phone, do reservations. We had no internet or anything
Wow.
for almost 10 days. So it was eye-opening, and it sure shined a light on some of our opportunities we have to improve. But the community that we're in, Gaylord, just reacted incredible. I mean, it provides a great insight into human character when you go through that stuff, and the people that help, and neighbors helping neighbors, strangers helping strangers, getting people out of driveways and checking on elderly to make sure they have food and water, and because it was a little bit of a scary situation for a while, but we're full steam here, and a lot of stuff's cleaned up. I mean, all of our properties and golf courses and everything are cleaned up. We're working on the slopes, but we've dealt with it. Got a few scars to show just from the
Yeah.
amount of work and everything, but onward and upward.
Snowmaking infrastructure is okay.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and everything's, in that regard is kind of far enough away from trees because well, the ice was severe. Obviously that stuff's designed for winter weather, and but yeah, it's just amazing the amount of impact it had through the region. The actual estate called in the National Guard to provide assistance and clearing of roadways and different things like that. But yeah, a lot of things are back to normal. You can still see some of the piles of debris and stuff that's being worked on, and old telephone poles that are snapped off that have been
Hmm.
replaced but haven't been removed yet. But yeah, the region bounced back strong.
As upsetting as it can be to see events like this, they always make me feel better about living in a country like this because you see how much resources they are and how quickly they can be organized. And I travel a lot, and one of the things that always I find very moving in this weird way is when you see the convoys of power trucks going along the interstate, and there'll be 6 or 7 of them, and they'll be from Florida or Alabama or Michigan or Pennsylvania. They're going the opposite way across the country. And when in New York City we had a hurricane in 2011, there were trucks from thousands of them from all over the country, and it was really moving to see this mass movement of people. What was that like in Gaylord? And I'm curious how you're a big property, but small in the context of your county. So,
Sure.
what was that like to have this mass movement of help come in? And what part did Treetops play in that in conjunction with Gaylord County and the other authorities or whatever to as they prioritize what needs to be done?
Yeah, I agree with you. It reinforces your belief in humanity and everything else of
Hmm.
what happens there. The stories are endless of the assistance, but as you mentioned, we are a larger facility, and there's a guy too, John Deming, who's in charge of he's in charge of our first responders, our ambulance crew, and stuff like that. And he's also the emergency director, and just a great, great human being who's really good at what he does and respected by all. I reached out to him and I go, "Hey, what are you hearing about power?" I'm like kind of begging, and he goes, "We're on our way to you because we want to get you guys set up because we want you guys to be able to house a bunch of people, linemen."
Oh wow. Okay.
And so we went from no power, no internet,
Hmm.
no phones, and in about 7 days, we were almost at 100%
Oh
occupancy.
wow.
And it's a period, it was in April, so it's an area that, we're normally not very busy at all. And so we housed a bunch of those workers, and we provided places, obviously, for our staff to come in, and showers, warm food.
Hmm.
There's people in the community that came into, and our county's great. We're in Gaylord's actually in Otsego County, and our community foundation is very well organized, and Sadly, we got good at this about 3 years ago with the tornado that went through town. And so it's everybody's ready to react. But as you mentioned, the power trucks that came from all over and talking to some of these people and where they work and how many hours they're working when they're here and on a run like this, working 3 or 4 weeks, straight as they get through this.
Yeah, it's a job, and everyone has to show up to work and feed their family. But do you get a sense for some of these guys that it's more than that, that they like this sense of duty and being out and
Yeah.
responding to these disasters and helping?
Yeah, you sure do. And it's funny, you got everything. You got the grizzled veterans that have done it for a long time, and then you've got, these young workers who are 22, 23 years old and just they're loving it. They do very well financially during
Yeah.
those times too because of the hours they're putting in. But
Hmm.
but yeah, it's across the board. It's neat to see. And as you mentioned, we had people from Florida, from Louisiana, Georgia, and everywhere in between.
So long cleanup ahead. And then you mentioned you had a lightning storm hit. Tell us about that.
So yeah, just a few days ago, it was on our Tradition golf course, which is at the north property,
Hmm.
um, and that's an area that's about 2,500 acres, and there's 4 golf courses up there. No skiing or winter sports up there, but the guys heard it from the maintenance building. They could tell it was close. It was probably a couple hundred yards from them, and they went out, and it was a lightning strike that hit in a fairway,
Okay.
and most likely attracted by the electrical and the stuff for the irrigation in the ground because it wreaked havoc with our irrigation system,
Hmm.
blew up some controller boards and stuff like that. But it created this spider web network and very, very unique looking. I've never seen it in my career. So we'll see what happens to that
Yeah.
area. I'm fascinated by that stuff. So I've been going out every day and taking pictures and the lightning strikes intuitively know that thunderstorms make everything greener and it's a fact. It releases bound up nitrogen in the grass, the lightning does. So we're curious if this area that's started as black and now is
Hmm.
turning brown if it's going to get rich green. And so we'll keep you updated with some up-to-date photos because it's pretty neat looking.
Well, that'll be cool. Yeah. Well, it'll be a few weeks before I get this podcast out. So we'll make sure we throw some photos up in the video version of this
Yeah.
podcast. So let's talk about the ski season here, Barry. The 2023 to 24 ski season was, as far as I can tell from all the measurements I've seen, the worst in the history of modern Midwest skiing. So talk about 24, 25. That seemed to be better, both from my personal experience driving around and skiing the region and all the numbers I've seen. But talk about Treetops. How was your 2024-25 ski season, and how did it compare to the crummy previous winter?
So here in Otsego County and at our ski area, we set a snow record. So we
Wow.
went from one record to the other.
Mm,
I think we finished the year at like 204 inches of natural
nice.
snow.
Nice.
And, we like to think that we made really, really good management decisions that increased our business exponentially.
Okay.
But Mother Nature, I think, had a much larger role than our skill set as managers. And
Hmm.
it was great. I mean, we were above levels from the previous year,
Hmm.
of 22, 23. Over last year, depending on the category, between 30 and 40% increase that
Mm.
we saw. So it was a great, great season for us. We were very happy with how it turned out.
204 inches. I mean, folks listening to this who are not familiar with Michigan geography might be surprised to hear that because you're not in the Upper Peninsula where we know they get those big snowstorms. You're a small ski area, like I said, 90 acres, 200 and some vertical feet. Talk about where Treetops is in the world and how it's possible for you to get 204 inches. And I know you said that's a record, but that's not necessarily unusual. It averages, as I said, 140 inches per year.
Yeah, so we are Gaylord is the highest point elevation wise in the Lower Peninsula.
Hmm.
And and we're far enough away from the water that we get colder here. We
Hmm.
get colder quicker. The other areas that like Nubs and the Highlands and Crystal. I mean, they'll get some of those lake effect, storms that come through and just dump a tremendous amount of snow. And we'll get the effects of those too. But it seems like we can always kind of start making snow quicker than everybody else because our temperatures get lower.
Hmm.
And it's always been like this. There's a brewery in town called Snowbelt Brewing,
Hmm.
because we set in the snowbelt, and it's always been that way. And we just see it all the time, and it extends out farther too. I mean, Boyne Mountain is, it's 25 minute drive from here, so they experience it also. And obviously we got Otsego Club, which is right next to us, that experiences also. But yeah, it's why they put them here. It's why they built the ski hills here so long ago, because somebody was smart enough to know there was snow.
That's right. So it's there for a reason, you know, but nothing's inevitable. And I think that there's a good story to tell around Treetops and how it's endured. So I want to set this up for the listener here. A lot of ski areas also have golf courses, and usually I don't mention them, and they're incidental. And like Cabernet, one of your competitors in Michigan,
Yep.
has a golf course. They're a ski area first. They happen to have a golf course. Some, like Boyne Mountain, has a bunch of golf courses. I still consider that a ski area first. Treetops seems to present itself to the world as a golf resort first and a ski area sort of second. So a golf resort with a ski area attached. Maybe that's just my reading of it. But as I said, 5 championship level golf courses. I know you host major events there that are on national TV. So it's a big deal. As time has gone on and the world has appreciated how difficult and complex it is to run a ski area, a lot of larger resorts, we have a ton of them here in New York, a lot of big Catskills resorts used to have a little ski area tacked on, and almost all of them got shut down because it just wasn't worth it. So talk to us about this, Barry, and help us understand, how does Treetops, this little 90-acre ski resort, fit into this 3,300-acre resort that you manage? What what part does it play? How important is it? Just seed it within the broader Treetops, the ski part, if you can, for us.
Sure. So, it's interesting to think that the origin of treetops are ski based.
Hmm.
Started as a facility called Sylvan Knob back in the 50s, 1954. And so golf didn't start here until 1987. So what's that? I guess that's 33 years. It operated as a ski area, and has a neat history and stuff back there, but very small from day one.
Hmm.
And there's a gentleman named Harry Melling, who was the basically an industrialist out of Jackson, Michigan, in the manufacturing industry, a company called Melling Tool. Very, very successful. And he loved the property, loved what it had, and also loved golf. So he invested a tremendous amount of money from the mid 80s until the late 90s. He actually passed away in 99. And so grew part of the ski element, but incredibly grew the golf element.
Hmm.
Um, so it's had that co-op there for a long time, but you're right, and it is. When I started here in 2010, it most definitely was, a golf facility with an amenity of skiing. And as I came on board, I was excited about the downhill ski operation because I'd never been involved in that and the
Hmm.
opportunity that it brought. I thought I was prepared to understand it. It took me longer than I thought it did. And we didn't have the greatest ski culture.
Okay.
For the longest time, we took golf staff and kind of transitioned them to, run the ski operation. And we didn't have enough people dedicated to ski.
Mm.
And it showed in our product, we talk about working hard here in the last few years to establish a ski culture, that people feel good about it, and have that attraction to it. Because as a smaller area, we should be able to do that. And so, how it fits in here, it's a big part of what we do. And there's a lot of low-hanging fruit for us.
Hmm.
There's a lot of opportunity for us to improve. We got these big, big behemoths around us. I mean, the 800-pound gorilla, and I respect the heck out of Steve Kircher and everything
Hmm.
he's done. I mean, but it's such a big animal over there at the mountain, and then you got the highlands, an hour away, and we want to present an alternative to that. Something that is a great area for families to learn. New people to get into the sport, to fall in love with it again. More of an intimate setting that people can just embrace. Our restaurant, we have three restaurants that set on top of our ski hill. We're kind of set up backwards if you've never been here
Hmm.
before. And we have a saying that you couldn't lose your kids here if you wanted to. You can set up in that
Right.
if you're a parent that doesn't want to ski at all, or if you just
Hmm.
want to do a few runs, you can set in one of the restaurants at the top of the hill, and you'll see your child or children,
Hmm.
every 10, 15 minutes or so. You can spot them seeing there, and so there's a great comfort factor in that. And we feel like we've just scratched the surface on ski, and we've made some investments here with financially and also some personnel in the last 7, 8 years.
Hmm.
And there's additional opportunities for us, but it's very important for us as we move forward into the future.
Clearly, you were a golf guy for a long time. Were you a skier when you showed up?
I've skied. I don't know
Yeah.
that I'd classify myself as a skier.
So did you grow up skiing? Was it something you
I
did
did
once in a
not.
while?
Yeah, it was more once in a while. And then ironically, here's gives you an indication of my good friends. My first time ever skiing in my life was at A Basin in
Okay.
Colorado. I lived out there, so nice
Yeah.
friends, huh? Hey, come on up. These black diamonds, they're easy. Anybody can do
Oh
them.
gosh.
Yeah.
I was just out there. A Basin's a riot, but I would not take a new friend there. So how did you then, Barry? You successfully run an operation for a long time, this other golf resort, and you come over and you said you were intrigued by the ski area, but didn't really know what to do with it necessarily, but understood that you had to create a ski culture. So how did you do that? How did you understand what a ski culture was? Was it a matter of going to every other ski area in Michigan? And how did you get ski people in there to run it? Because there is a lot of ski talent in the Lower Peninsula of Michigan, but it's a matter of finding them, and most of them already have jobs, right? So you showed up, and you know the golf, and it's a great established place. So how did you go about that other element, understanding and then building what you call the ski culture?
So, you know, obviously visiting the other areas, and I've visited a bunch of them and skied at them before. So, and certain things. I mean, you're managing resources and the allocation, and most importantly, always trying to look at things from through the guest eyes.
Mm-hmm.
What are they looking at? What are they seeing? And how does it feel? And so we understand hospitality and how to take care of people. And when I came here, it wasn't like the ski was bad or anything like that. There was we've had good snowmaking, we've had good grooming, we've had people that understand that. Probably more so some of the stuff was on the front end
Mm-hmm.
and some of the programming. So over the time here, we've been able to attract some talent, people that have some experience with other Northern Michigan properties, or even from outside of the state, that have come on board and fit in well with us. The guy who's our director of skiing in charge of everything, a guy named Brad Jacobson. Had a chance to
Yeah.
meet Brad, and Brad's great. I mean, he's really embraced it. But there was certain things, when I got here, we didn't have a consistent presence at the national conference and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. So, really getting into those things. getting the people that are here educated, getting them out there, and just pushing forward with that we need to just build on what we have here and make sure we understand who we're taking care of, what they're interested in, and then they have this opportunity. And you get some people say, your elevation's, not that great, and you don't have this and you don't have that. And we don't shy away from that. We lean into that.
Yeah.
This is who we are. This is what we are. If you want to come to a place where, you're not worried about your 4-year-old getting run over and you don't
Hmm.
have to look over your shoulder the whole time while you're out here skiing, that's what we have. And, we have opportunity with our ski school. We've done some good things there, but we have much more opportunity. And one of the partnerships that we've developed that's helped a lot is we've developed a relationship with the folks at Snow Operating.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just had Joe on the pod.
Yeah. And so yeah, we've worked a lot with Eric and Hugh and Malcolm and their team. We've got TBL here.
Hmm.
They've helped us set that up for our teaching. They've helped us with the grooming each year and set up, and then the actual instruction components of that. And they've been a huge asset in just some of our programming and how we do things. And
Hmm.
so we look forward to continuing to work with them and, them giving us some knowledge that we can apply and and make work here. So they've been a big asset for us.
Yeah, leaning into what you do is I found the formula for success for these smaller ski areas that are in proximity to larger ski areas across the country. If you look out in Tahoe, for example, you have this little ski area, Boreal. It's right next to Sugar Bowl, which is huge. But Boreal decided we're going to have night skiing. We're going to basically be a giant terrain park. So they differentiated themselves. Mount Peter here by New York City, 200 vertical feet, but we're kids. That's what we are. I think Treetops has done a nice job of saying, of I of crafting an identity that's not Boyne Mountain, that's not Shanty Creek, that's not Crystal Mountain, that's not Nubs Knob. Another advantage you have is that you're right in Gaylord, probably the easiest ski area in Michigan to get to off the interstate in northern Michigan until 2017. So to set this up for the listeners, for years and years, Otsego Resort, which is a ski area that's about double your acreage and double your height, right next to Treetops, literally. It was private for decades and decades. In 2017, they decided to open it to the public. So it's bigger. It's just as easy to get to. It has more vertical. It has pretty nice facilities, right? Because it was a private club for so long. It's
Yep.
also got that golf hybrid. So what sorts of challenges did the opening of Otsego Resort to the public in 2017 present to Treetops? And how have you been able to respond to that in the face of what I'm assuming is greater competition?
So it's a neat facility, and when it opened to the public, I mean, prior to that, the Gornick family owned it forever. The whole history is really neat about it and the tie into the automotive industry and stuff. But they sold it. It is operated by you know two or three different entities during that time. So they had their starts and stops and stuff like that. But now there's a couple that owns the facility and they're committed to it and have, made a lot of improvements and reinvestments. And I know them. So there is more competition, but we have an understanding with each other too. Neither one of us are going to get rich doing, see who can get the most $15 lift tickets on a Wednesday.
Right.
You, you know, so there's ways that, we haven't done it to date, but I think there's ways we can work together,
Hmm.
to help each other out. I hope we get to that point, and I don't see any reason we won't. But there has been the opportunities for competition. Sure, they exist there. Season passes and different things like that, and we've been smart enough, if we're going to do discounted midweek nights, to do them on different nights, to not do them on the same nights, and
Right.
work our way there. But I mean, it of course has created some competition, but the competition that we really face off on is the stuff that's in the community and within a short drive of us.
Hmm.
The people that are coming up for destination stays, we see it as a positive. We get people that'll, stay at their place and come over and ski one day at ours, or vice versa. So,
Hmm.
those are some of the areas I think, with being more intentional, we could probably even assist each other a little bit, and joint packaging and things like that, which
Hmm.
which hasn't happened yet, but just really hasn't been broached yet.
When you heard this news, they were going to go public. I guess that was the wrong way to frame it. What was your reaction when you heard that Otsego was going to go public? And then how has reality played out against maybe any fears or apprehensions you might have had?
There was concerns because there's, as you mentioned, there's a player that close right in the marketplace, but
Hmm.
we're not afraid of that.
Hmm.
And Michigan's got a tremendous amount of skiers. We've been competing with, Gaylord's got 17 golf courses.
Yeah.
So, we're used to all that.
Uh-huh.
And, more importantly, the business that we do I'll call it within a, 30-minute radius of us, is very, very important. But, all of us depend on the destination skier that's coming to ski for 2, 3, 4 days. And so, the amount of people that do that are tremendous. So we don't beat each other up as much for that type of business, and there's more of it to go around. So there was apprehension to begin with, but you learn to adapt, and some of the apprehension was, I don't want to say ill-founded, but not found on fact, more so just the reaction that they were opening up. And I believe we're both doing fine. We both had great winners this past year. I know in discussions, with the ownership there, had a chance to catch up with them here recently, and they had a great winner, and so did we. So once again, it's the old saying, the rising tide rises all ships. And it's true, and so do the slow times too.
Quick break from Barry to talk about my friends at Bonfire Collective. Does your marketing need a fresh perspective from industry experts? Do you need better storytelling, rebranding, or advertising? If so, you're going to want to connect with Bonfire Collective. They're a fractional marketing team that collaborates with ski areas and other outdoor brands. Now, I know you're wondering, what does that mean to be a, quote, fractional marketing team that collaborates with ski areas and outdoor brands? Well, what it means is that Bonfire can help you rethink your approach in ways that can turbocharge your business. For example, Bonfire worked with one New Hampshire ski area and doubled their revenues in 3 years. And when the storm decided it was time for our first digital advertising campaign last year, we worked with Bonfire to make that happen. I could not be happier with the results. I love working with them. I love their ideas. They're also just really good people, and I think you will love working with them too. To get started, you'll want to talk to Eric over at Bonfire Collective. Eric was a co-founder at Bluebird Backcountry, as you have seen on this podcast, and he knows the ski business. Visit bonfirecollective.com, or I will be happy to make that connection for you. Back to it. So I want to do something I don't normally do, which is talk about golf a little bit. I'm not a golfer, but it's very adjacent to skiing, and it plays an important part in the backdrop of this story. And it seems to me that Northern Michigan is some kind of golfing hotspot, because I was looking the other day, Boyne has something like 10 or 11 golf resorts, and you have 5, courses right there. And another ski area operator in California, they operate Mount Baldy. The Ellenson family actually runs a ski golf course in Northern Michigan in the summer. So they're all over the place, and it's part of the culture. Can you, and my listeners are very familiar with the different ski cultures around the United States, and I'm a big proponent of the Midwest and talk about what a great ski culture it is. Help us understand golf culture. Like, where does Northern Michigan fit into the golf world? And then, if you could, take us into your career at Garland and your part in this wider culture.
Sure. So there's a cooperative group that's name alone kind of helps set the tone for your question.
Hmm.
There's a group of resorts that are in a co-op marketing program that participates with the state of Michigan, Pure Michigan campaign,
Hmm.
and also Traverse City Airport, TVC Airport, called America's Summer Golf Capital.
Yeah.
And that's what, Northern Michigan and this collective group have actually trademarked that name and bill ourselves at is America's Summer Golf Capital. And the reason for that is a variety of items. Number one, this is a agricultural region. So we have great soil for growing stuff like grass.
Yeah.
And we have this incredible topography. We also have land that's a lot cheaper per acre than in other areas. And so you have these immense resorts. You hear, oh, this resort's 3,000 acres and 4,000 acres, and you hear those numbers. And to some people from other parts of the country, they're like going, oh my God. To us up here, it's like, oh yeah, what's a couple thousand acres?
Yeah.
Um, and then over time, there's a variety of um, brand name designers that have worked in this region. For the golf industry, who designed the course is almost as important as what course I'm playing. I'm playing a Jack Nicklaus course or an Arnold Palmer or Robert Trent Jones Sr. Those are names that, conspicuous consumption. I want to play the great designers courses.
Hmm.
And then we have just, all these lakes around us, the fresh water and the things that all that offers. So like the goal of this America's Summer Golf Capital is not to market in the state of Michigan. It's
Yeah.
to market outside of the state of Michigan. So what's happened here in the last 10 years, particularly, COVID is a demarcation point for a lot of things. Golf has grown immensely with demographics that didn't usually have as well known before, which is the largest growing demographic for golf right now is women
Hmm.
and millennials.
Yeah.
The number of people participating there. So this America Summer Golf Capital Group, along with the state and Traverse City Airport, are marketing on for people to fly from East Coast, direct flights into Traverse City from
Mm.
JFK, LaGuardia, Boston, DC, Charlotte, North Carolina,
Wow.
and then Texas, Florida, Georgia. So you've got all these direct flights, and it's kind of enticing people to get out of the heat. The
Yeah.
messages for us is, you might need a sweater in the morning where, down there in Texas, it's 98 in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's been discovered, and it's 23% of our golfers are from out of state.
It's amazing.
Treetops, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the weather I think in northern Michigan in the summer is some of the best in the world. And I'll also add it's just very easy to get around. I know Michiganders grumble about the roads and sometimes they could do a little better. The winters are rough on them, but the road network is very good and you can get anywhere very fast and there's not a lot of traffic. So talk about Garland and where Garland fits in here, Barry, and your trajectory there at running that resort for many, many years.
Yeah, so I during that time I worked for my father-in-law there, and that's how I landed in the job. And it was pretty interesting. When I started there in 1986, there was 36 holes of golf, and there was no structures on the property.
Wow.
There was a clubhouse that was there previously that was destroyed by a fire in 1985.
Okay.
And so Ron Otto is his name, and he was a very successful manufacturer and very, very creative. He designed the two courses that were there,
Mm.
self-taught, tremendous feel for land, and And as a manufacturer, he understood business flow and processes and things like that. So, what was ultimately done there with four golf courses and business processes and how the flow of everything went and the management, four courses out of one pro shop, one cart barn, one maintenance facility, a lot of economies of scale, and then just he was a quality freak, and we were fortunate enough to and worked very hard. We were a AAA four diamond property for 9 years,
Hmm.
largest log lodge east of the Mississippi.
Cool.
And so there was just a certain charm about the place. And I was fortunate enough to see it from the ground up. I was young and learned a lot from him. He taught me so much. And, I couldn't have come in the middle and done what I did. I was able to grow with it. And
Hmm.
so it kind of set the tone for my career. And I'm proud to say, I've only worked at two places in my career, and
Hmm.
in two, very, very well-known resorts, not only in Michigan but in the Great Lakes and Treetops because of the golf, with a national footprint.
Did you grow up near the area?
I grew up in downstate, so
Mhm.
for our non-Michigan listeners, that would be the Detroit area, suburb
Okay.
of Detroit, and
Which one?
Plymouth.
Okay.
But yeah, Michigan's, I wasn't born here and I've had some stints away, but since I got into the resort industry, I've been here, for, geez, since 1986. So,
So father-in-law takes you north. I'd imagine there's a story there, and you run it for 24 years until 2010, and essentially help build the place, from what I'm understanding. That's not something you walk away from without a reason. So, what happened, Barry, in 2010 that ultimately forced a job change?
so, good question, Stuart. The so he was a guy that loved to develop stuff, loved to
Hmm.
create, loved to grow. And maybe sometimes got out in front of himself sometimes and had the skill set to bring it back and catch back up. But um, the turn down of '08, '09 there that we had from a financial standpoint caught up to the property. He ultimately was in a position that he needed to sell it and get out of it. So it was an unfortunate into the run that was there because it was a really, really neat run. A lot of real estate development took place
Hmm.
there in the time that we were there, and a lot of things very successful, but unfortunately, he had to make those decisions to sell it. And so there was some people that bought it. I stayed involved there for a little bit, and ultimately left there. And at the same time, this job popped up.
Hmm.
A friend of a friend reached out to me about it. I was not a huge fan of Treetops in the sense as a competitor, and they had some things that we didn't have at Garland and stuff. And so, long story short, I did some consulting with them for a little bit because I wasn't quite sure I was ready to jump right back into back into the same role I had,
Hmm.
so close to where I was at before. But it fell together. The ownership group that's here, they've owned the property since 2002. Very, very supportive. It was kind of interesting. I went from where I was running a family-owned business, but the patriarch was there, and
Yeah.
he had what he wanted to do and everything else. And then I left that and came over to Treetops and had way more control right out of the box. They're like, and the owners are great. They wanted what they wanted, but they were like, we don't want to be involved in the day to day. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do this. And I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. So I've been, very fortunate and given a lot of autonomy in this time here that I've been here, and it was a crazy time in my life and the transition and how it all went down and everything else. It was very, very interesting.
If you wouldn't mind taking us inside a little bit to that transition, because I'm always curious how people move through unexpected large changes, and I think that's always part of the ski industry and part of life, right? So curious what that was like for you to have built something for so long that part of your family, and then have to move on, and how you were able to ultimately choose your own perspective on that and make it a positive rather than dwelling on what was lost.
Yeah, it was hard, because envision myself and family and everything being there forever.
Hmm.
It was part of our DNA, and never thought I never envisioned myself anywhere else. So, as it all started to come down, you could kind of see the writing on the wall because there was performance issues and bank pressures and different things like that many people have gone through and stuck through there and wanted to see it through. And the new owners came in, and my initial reaction was, oh, this is great. We're going to get everything we need, and there's new capital and da da da. And but they wanted to do it their way, which
Hmm.
I understand. I maybe didn't understand it initially at the time I was there. I'm like, wait a minute, I know what we need to do,
Uh-huh.
but my time there, after they bought was short-lived, probably, I don't know, 10 months or something like that. And you know, I, I wasn't sure what I was going to do. I living in Lewiston, Michigan, like where am I going to go? And
Yeah.
got kids in school and everything else. And so, that was so ironic about how this dropped out of the air. So, had uncertainty produces anxiety. And,
Yeah.
so there was a lot of uncertainty at that time and not sure what was going to happen. And then, in retrospect, it's such a cliche, but, some things happen for a reason. And parts of it couldn't have turned out better than if I'd have written it down
Yeah.
myself. And I never would have written it down myself because I would have never envisioned myself sitting in this office at Treetops
Right.
saying I'm here now working because I just never saw that in my future. But it's worked out great.
So I want to talk about what worked out great, but first I want to set up the scene. So it's not as though Treetops was thriving, from my understanding, when you walked in the door. So I'll read this from a Detroit Business Journal 2012 article. Quote, only a couple of years ago, Treetops was the subject of bankruptcy rumors. That article also noted that, quote, a succession of out of state managers unfamiliar with the nuances of the seasonal resort business in northern Michigan, end quote, attended this challenging period. So take us back in time, Treetops 2010. What did it look like? What did you walk into? What was the state of the resort?
So when this opportunity popped up, uh, I talked to a couple of the owners about it. We went back and forth with a variety of interviews, and they offered me the job, and I turned it down.
Hmm.
And I says, look, I just kind of outlined the things you just said. I go, there's these issues with performance. I'd talked to them enough that I knew where it was at and what was going on with it financially. And I said, there's no secret that this thing has been talked about as being a possible sale candidate. I don't want to go through this again.
Yeah.
And so we agreed I would consult for like 3 or 4 months.
Hmm.
And it's funny the pivotal role that's played in kind of everything, including the future of the property. The times, and it got, impacted by those same financial times that Garland did, and it took
Hmm.
its fair share of hits and maybe even more. The couple things when I consulted with them, they wanted me to look at the operations and look at it, which, consulting's great. You can look at it, make suggestions, and then leave. You don't have to go through the heavy, heavy lifting of implementing, but then that's also not very rewarding.
Right.
But there was a couple things specifically that they asked me to look at. And one was they contemplated closing a golf course down to save on expenses. And you
Mm,
know what happens when you start doing
yeah.
that? I mean, that's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
But then the other one was closing the winter operation.
Okay.
So I actually did a whole presentation and put it together and said, um, should not close the golf course, should not close for winter and everything else. And so went through, further talked about myself working here. And it was funny. There was a key point. There was an interesting group of owners that were involved and some people very, very successful in the automotive industry. And one of them asked to see me individually. I'd never met him before, knew his name, ran one of the big three. And we're talking, and he says to me, he goes, "Why don't you come here and work?" And I went through this dog and pony. Oh, it's no secret you're going to been possible selling it, and
Hmm.
I just went through this. I don't want to go through this again. And he says to me, he goes, "What do you think the chances are of selling it?" And I go, "Zero." And he goes, "So what are you waiting for?" And I'm going, "Oh boy, I walked right into that one, didn't I?" And shortly after that, we came to terms, and then I came here and started, and it was, it was in a position that there had been some people that weren't familiar with our environment in northern Michigan, and so there was a lot of things that we could improve really quickly. Usually when a business is struggling, it's struggling. It's not a bunch of mysterious reasons. It's usually just been, uninformed or poor decision making.
Hmm.
And so, we were able to turn a bunch of things around really, really quick. And those types of things were rewarding for the staff. There was good staff here. The ownership was supportive. The ownership was in a sense too. They didn't need money from the operation. They're like, get this thing going, money you make, you can reinvest. So a lot of things happened really quickly and went really well. And we made big improvements in revenue and rounds and skier visits and everything. So it jumped off really quick.
Let's talk about the ski area in particular for a moment, because if you wouldn't have made that pitch, we might not be having this conversation,
We might
right?
not be.
So, why did the owners consider closing the ski area? Was it not making money? And what was your pitch that they should not do that as being someone who wasn't even a ski guy?
So, they had gotten to the point that they were subject to regular capital calls.
Hmm.
So, not only did they have the money from when they bought it in 2002, but they were regularly feeding it. And it was funny, so, one of the things my conditions a strong word, but one of the things that I wanted when I came here is I says, I want to be transparent
Hmm.
to the staff and even the community because at points the ownership group had been made out to be bad guys where the whole time they owned it, they were writing checks every year to support payroll, to do these different things. And the people that were running it were struggling to get it right.
Hmm.
And so, I wanted to say, hey, these our owners are great. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't be doing this right now. But those decisions that of possibly, closing those things were looked at as a sense of, okay, we're looking at something black and white here on paper, and so these months we're not making any money.
Hmm.
But one of the things that I looked at and I says, okay, we're not contributing money to the bottom line, but we're deferring fixed costs. So with improvements, we can begin to take money to the bottom line. And with a systematic approach, we were able to do that. It is kind of crazy to think about, and I thought about, before today that going back to those times that, I mean, literally, I don't know, maybe somebody else would have came in and, done the same thing, done better, or whatever, but we literally might not be having this
Yeah.
conversation if, that pitch hadn't went well.
You've said in the past on a different platform, and this is something I read you quoted on, that a big part of the turnaround was cultural and your people. And I wrote a piece recently. I go to hundreds of ski areas, and one thing I look at and care about most is, are the people nice? Because there's nothing that'll ruin that experience faster
Right.
than one person that's unpleasant. You talked about, and these were your words, you said that you inherited a quote, can't do staff, and you were able to reprogram them into what you called a solution oriented one. Talk about that, Barry. What do you mean by all that, and how were you able to not only make the transformation but keep that in place so that that's the new normal, so that that's been guiding your resort ever since?
Yeah. So when we say, when I said a phrase like a can't do staff, that's not on the staff.
Mm-hmm.
That's on leadership. That's, you know, mo somebody in my seat, because, they follow the lead of whoever's in charge. And so, the big thing is, you know, doing things that created freedom to be able to act,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that, there was clear expectations. The quote I love is, uncommunicated expectations are the root of all frustrations. And it's so true,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know what I want, you guessing to try to make me happy
Mm-hmm.
is a very tedious process. So, and there was things that were done here too that, there was competing interest. I'm not sure the best way to explain it, but there was a philosophy that was like, well, let's don't fix this. Let's wait till we get new and let's show our ownership how bad it is,
Mm-hmm.
which is just a recipe for disaster. So
Right.
there was simple things that, hey, let's fix it. And so
Mm-hmm.
the staff was great. They were like, "Oh my God, you mean we can do this?"
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget. I was a consultant, and we have this great jacuzzi tub. This is 2010, that you look out from the lobby of the hotel you check in, and nice pool and jacuzzi tub. And I'm standing there like my first day, like as a consultant, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking down, and this thing's got plywood over it and like yellow caution tape around it. And I'm
Right.
like, I'm like, oh my God, all there needs is like a body outline,
Mm-hmm.
chalk body outline. And I go, what's going on here? And well, obviously it's broken, it's not working. I go, how much will it cost? And he goes, well, it's like $42,000. And I go,
Mm-hmm.
42? He goes, yeah, that's to replace it.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, well, does it need to be replaced? And he goes, no. I go, what would it cost to fix? And he goes, 1,200 bucks. And I go, well, let's fix it. And he
Right.
goes, do you have the authority to do that? And I go, I don't know. If I don't, you won't have to deal with me like in a week. And he goes, okay. And, but I mean, it was just, it was some simple things like that.
Right.
It was like, let's not fix it. Let's lobby for new. But in the
Mm-hmm.
meantime, we just send these horrible messages. So, as you know, with an organization, you start changing that mindset. That stuff catches like wildfire,
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, I don't know who this new guy is, but, he's going to allow us to do some things that we can take care of the guests because, you know, um, whoever's making those decisions aren't the one that's dealing face to face with the guest who's like, what the hell is wrong? Why doesn't this thing work? So now if they can be in a position that they can fix things and ensure people are having a good time because, you talk about, um, how do you keep this going? Our core focus, a hedgehog concept, why we get up in the morning, why we exist, is to create lasting memories.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, that's our goal here, that people are going to remember this, ski groups, golf groups, whatever, they get together once a year.
Mm-hmm.
Once a year. There's family and friends that see each other once a year, and we're the caretaker of that experience.
Yeah.
And our team understands that. And it's, I'll never forget, and had a meeting with our housekeeping team. There was some of them in there, and I go, "What's the best part of your job?" And I'm thinking, housekeeping. Oh my God, what is the best part of your job? I mean, to me, it's those people are, they're like superheroes cleaning
Hmm.
up after everybody. And one of the housekeepers looks at me and she goes, "When we can do something special, that a child that's here seeing, and we make a swan out of a towel and put it on the
Hmm.
bed and we see their reaction, that's why I do what I do." And that's, and
Hmm.
I get that, she tells me that, and I get chills, and
Hmm.
it's the same thing. You talk to the snow ops team and the ones, what's the best part of your job? Good corduroy.
Hmm.
To be able to see the people go down and look back behind them, and that they're the first
Yeah.
tracks down, and be able to see that, that's why I love doing what I do. So it's a culture that we have, it's never perfect, but we're striving for that every day.
So you make the top to bottom cultural change, and that actually can happen fairly quickly once people buy in. The financial piece was not necessarily a smooth lineup, right? It never is. Declared bankruptcy, I think, from media reports in 2014. So all a way of saying there's always bumps in the road. So take us through that. What happened after you took over? Kind of what happened in 2014, and then how did you recover and get to the place you are now, where you feel like you're running a sustainable operation?
So it's so interesting. You shared a couple things to talk about before, and I
Yeah.
kind of saw that and I go, "Oh my God, I almost forgot about that." Um, so the first thing that it was a challenge to communicate. Did a lot of communication internally. I'll never forget. We purposely filed bankruptcy on Wednesday at like 4:30 of Thanksgiving weekend,
Okay.
because the goal was for it not to get picked up by the media,
Right.
which failed. I think I did like 14 radio interviews on Thanksgiving Day. Um, but the whole unique part about it is that um, normally there's a bank involved when you file bankruptcy,
Okay.
and we had no debt,
Okay.
and we weren't defaulting on any loan covenants. We didn't
Okay.
have any cash problems. What this was is a disagreement between our ownership group on how to convert some owner debt and get it off the balance sheet. Because as we made a bunch of
Mm,
these improvements,
okay.
we wanted to go out and get financing to do improvements here.
Hmm.
But we had all this owner debt, the money they contributed, they had, layered into as owner debt. So we had all this debt that was not being serviced, and it was just accumulating,
Okay.
and accumulating interest and stuff like that. So any bank would look at it and they were like, if you can clean this up, because there's too much stuff there.
Okay.
And so the funny part is we filed on that, and I had talked to a bunch of banks about getting financing because we wanted to do some improvements, and they all said to me, no, we can't do anything. But then the Monday after Thanksgiving, I got calls from like three of the banks, and this is the world we lived in. They're like, "Hey, we saw the good news. You guys are going to clean up your balance sheet."
Oh
And I'm
my
like, "Oh
gosh.
my gosh, what a world!" But we went through that whole process. Very, very challenging time, and it's funny, when you go through that, there's ultimately um, uh, there's a debtor in possession manager. Usually it's somebody the bank hires, but since there was no bank, I was the debtor in possession
Okay.
manager. And, I had the luxury of testifying in a federal courtroom
Mm,
in regards to that, which is something I don't want to do again. But so we went through that process. We did a good job of communicating. Business did not go down. In the long run, it accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. The one thing I will say about going through the process and going through a Chapter 11 is that it is the ultimate body cleanse.
Hmm.
We had some executory contracts out there that
Yeah.
properties like this accumulate as a burden. And we took the opportunity to wipe the whole slate clean and get rid of some of those things. So it was costly, but we had significant cash reserves in place, and I think it was within I think it was within 12 to 18 months we had financing in place. We made improvements to our ho two hotels and stuff like that. So, they're complicated if you're not familiar with the whole thing. It can be very confusing, but we came out of it really, really good. But it was a challenging time, tremendous amount of communication, tremendous amount of time.
Let's talk about the ski area here. So, three triple chairs.
Yep.
They date from 1984, 1988, and 1995. Those fixed grip triples can run forever, decades and decades. How happy are you with these three machines? Any thoughts on modernizing, replacing any of them?
Right now we're happy. The C-Techs, they do great. We have a really, really good maintenance team. We paid attention to them, done everything that we need to do. My biggest thing right now is we need to paint the towers and stuff. A couple of them, we've done one. But for right now, they provide us what we need. I can't wait till, they're not adequate enough and they're not taking enough people up the hill in a timely manner. We're not at that point yet. Maybe on select days, but they're few
Hmm.
and far between. So we're happy with it right now. And, the addition of the snow belt, our carpet, that was a huge thing. We took out a rope tow, and as Brad says, we're saving one glove at a time.
Hmm.
So that's been a big addition for the teaching program too. And we all know the younger kids struggle with rope toes.
So triple chairs are fine, fixed grip chairs are fine for a hill of your size. I brought my 8-year-old son up there in December, as you know, you met him, Logan. And we live in New York. And in New York, all of the chairs are required to have bars that come down. And same in all of New England, you're required to use them. So we get on in Michigan, and I grew up in Michigan, so I knew this was going to be the case, but I didn't tell him because I didn't want him to freak out. So we get on the lift, and he's like, "Where's the bar?" And I said, "There's no bar." And he said, "Oh my God, I'm horrified." So with the new ANSI standards, all the new lifts that are built do have to have bars. Some of your lifts are pretty high. I would have liked to have had them. I don't really like riding without them myself. Any thought on retrofitting those lifts with bars?
Yeah, we've got the prices on it. It's being discussed. The challenging part is just the re-engineering of them. The
Hmm.
weight from the bars will require probably removing a couple chairs. So
Hmm.
yeah, we don't have a specific date that we're doing it, but we know we're going to do it because, it also precludes us from using them in the summertime
Yeah,
for events, if we want to do that. And obviously downstream loading is an issue too without the bar. So.
right. Do you find as a smaller ski area that is trying to market toward families, I think norms are changing, right? Because when I was growing up skiing in the 90s in Michigan, there were no bars on any lifts. There was two chairlifts in the state had them. It was the high speed quad at Boyne Highlands and the high speed 6 at Boyne Mountain. And that's just because they were newer chairs, right? When I went out east in 2002 and moved out here, it was a whole different thing. And eventually I got used to having them. When I go back to the Midwest, most people still don't use them even when they're there. But are you finding from families in this younger demographic, is this something they're asking for?
So we get it some, but we don't get it a lot. Surprisingly,
Hmm.
not as much. And I mean, it's something we need to do. But I mean, overall, for the three lifts, it's um, probably north of $250,000. So
Yeah.
it's a prioritization of capital.
Yep.
We haven't got a huge outswelling of, we're not going to ski there because we're
Hmm.
concerned about the safety or whatever. But I mean, it makes sense to have them.
Yeah. How about your snowmaking system? Where are you at with snowmaking? Obviously, pretty small acreage, but I'd imagine you're always modernizing. Joe from SMI, right down the road from you, was
Right.
telling me how much more efficient the newer guns are than the older ones as far as how much energy and water they use to make an equivalent amount of snow. So where are you at with modernization on your snowmaking?
So We don't have any automation, and our
Hmm.
area is small enough. I mean, automation, a lot of times you get a lot of the savings in the automation from labor, and ours wouldn't be tremendous in that because of the size of our area. We've got some more efficient guns. Some of those polecats, and
Hmm.
I think about a fourth of our fleet we got 30 guns. You would consider the more efficient ones. So yeah, I mean, we need to continue to reinvest. We've got areas too. We need to do some expansions to our electrical power.
Hmm.
We did a big expansion. Back at 2021 area where we basically tripled our snowmaking capacity.
Oh, wow.
And we added all those tower guns that I talked about. And the great part is we have access of water from two different systems. So,
Hmm.
we can do about 3,000 PSI. And the nice part is we have a valve house at the top of the hill that acts as like a little gathering place too. We put a little like extended covered area off there that people
Yeah.
can congregate in there, and it's right by our fire pit. So it's a nice,
Yeah.
nice outdoor area. We'll put a bar out there and stuff, but it's really a valve house. So one of the new expansion also tapped into a one of our irrigation systems on the Jones golf course here. So we've got a pumping station that does double duty, and it worked out really well for us because we needed to upgrade that station for the golf course too.
Okay.
So it's worked out great. And the way the system's set up now, if we were to have an issue with water supply on either side, we can shut it off and take care of the whole hill from one side. So right now we kind of have it split up. So the front side is handled by a part of the system, and then the back side is handled by another part of the system. So we're really set up there, and the amount of power that we have room for capacity
Hmm.
to add additional guns with. And but we've got some power issues I mean, that's the crux of everything, that you
Yeah.
get started with. So it's something that we want to continue to make improvements to. We feel really good about that improvement we made, and it really showed last year, when we had this poor snow conditions, we were
Yeah.
able to get things open and get things going, where prior to that, we'd have really struggled to get enough terrain to make people happy.
So you have this small ski footprint, big property, 3,300 acres, and a lot of our conversation is revolved around the existential necessity of competing against larger ski areas like Otsego or Boyne. Is there room to expand skiing at Treetops, or are you maxed out for downhill skiing? Is this the only part of the property that's appropriate for it?
No, there's definitely room. Um, we've added 5 runs like in the last 6 years.
Okay.
And I think we'll be adding one or two more runs this winter. It depends on how the
Oh,
tree
cool.
clearing goes.
Okay.
Last year we put in a glade for the first time. We've
Oh,
got
nice.
kind of a part of a glade,
Hmm.
now that's really not even named, that'll get cleaned up and more added to it. But there is, depending on how ambitious we want, we'll get to the point, we could almost expand by about a third.
Really?
But a big part of that would take a lot of work. It'd be rerouting a road. The inn, we have two different hotels that are a few hundred yards apart, and the inn is pretty much ski in, ski out. And
Yeah.
if we were able to do it would be the final push. It would take area that used to be skiable terrain back in the
Oh,
50s that was converted to a road, and it would make the lodge ski in and ski out, but it would require the installation of another lift. But yeah, there's about 35 acres that we could
wow.
do some stuff with. Yeah.
Is that Looker's left of Chair One? That
Yes.
road you drive down? And
Yes.
what's the vertical over there? Is it similar, or would that actually get you more vertical?
It gets you a little bit more, not a
Okay.
significant amount, but a little bit more.
That's cool. That's exciting. So what would it take to make that happen? Is it a build it and they'll come, or is it okay? We're getting more people, so we'll build more skiing.
We need to do a better job of, and we're on a path. We've made steady improvements here, but
Hmm.
we all know the magic thing is advanced sales.
Hmm.
And whether that's in the thing of season pass sales, or it's bookings or advanced lift ticket sales, all those things. So we've improved a bunch, but we need to continue. We're below the bar when you look at the percentages of season pass sales and stuff like that for small Midwest ski areas. So we've got ground to make up there, and that's where, we get excited because, we look at it and say there's, we're not at the minimum bar yet. There's things we can improve here. So, as that trend continues, which we're confident will be, we're already, on path for the growth that we want with season pass sales that we did this spring. So there's a lot of great indicators there for us. So we don't have a date for that larger expansion, but it's something we'll here in the next 12 to 18 months be formulating that plan to lay that out and the triggers that need to happen for that to happen.
All right, let's talk about season passes and passes, and then I'll let you go. So I'm surprised that you're not doing the volume on a season pass because you see season pass is $125 and you've done some 2-for-1s and some stuff. So people just not know? I mean, it's one of the cheapest season passes in the country. You have Bohemia, but Bohemia is at the end of the world,
Right.
right? You're right off I-75. So talk about the way you're thinking about season passes, why they're so cheap, and what you think you have to do to sell more of them.
So, we've shown growth each of the years, both in past numbers and in average sales. The sale prices you're talking about is an entry level. The best price at the beginning, and that gets tiered up as we go. Um, we don't have we've not had any RFID or whatever to allow the whole variety of different passes to take advantage of
Mm-hmm.
people that want specific day segments or all the different passes you can do when you have the RFID. We see that as an opportunity, and we're going to be partnering with. We're already into it with Snow Cloud, our friends at
Mm-hmm.
Snow Operating.
Okay.
So we're going to be able to have the RFID media. So
Mm-hmm.
you'll start seeing some of that stuff start coming down for us here as we get towards the end of the summer and we start making some introductions for some new opportunities that haven't ever existed here before.
Yeah.
So we're really bullish on that and excited about that and think it'll give additional opportunities for people in the area and the region to look at us and see us as a bigger player. We talk about establishing the ski culture, and there's a variety of steps, and we're not oblivious to social media and what people say about our operation and where we have opportunities, and it's there's a variety of things to check off the list of that are we being taken seriously, and one of them is what we're doing right now. I mean, we
Yeah.
weren't even on people's radar to, you've skied here, many times over the years, but, we're so excited just to be able to share what we're doing here on this podcast to, hardcore listeners. I mean, I get friends of mine, that ski here and ski other places, and he's like, "Hey, I heard Kircher, when are you going to be on that thing?" And I go, "I don't know, this was a while ago, and so I can't wait because I know he listens to it all the time.
Yeah.
I can't wait for it to drop and say, 'Yo, what's up, man? Did you hear
Yeah.
Stuart?'"
I've been meaning to get this one for a while. I always tell people if you haven't heard someone on the pod, it's not because I don't want to. It's just because there's so many ski
Yeah,
areas and so many
sure.
good stories. Curious, Barry, and this is my last question for you today. As we're talking about this network and being part of the ski conversation, you joined Indy Pass a few years ago. Has that helped? Because Indy Pass is in certain regions of the country, New England is one, the upper Midwest is another, has created these awesome little networks. I mean, you have Nubs Knob, Cabernet, Crystal, and Shanny. Those are the 4 best ski areas in the Lower Peninsula not owned by Boyne. They're all on there, and so are you. And they're all close to you. I have to imagine folks are buying it for Nubs and then saying, "Oh, what's this Treetops? Let's go there." And you, of course, get a payout each time. Do you think Indy Pass has helped you be more part of the ski conversation in Michigan?
Yeah. So the best, first off, absolutely. It's given us exposure, and It's interesting. You talk about a pricing of our ski pass right now. You know, our goal right now is market share.
Yeah.
And we want to get out there to different people. We've done things here before on certain days, which is not uncommon, but accepted other people's season passes, just to get it exposed to people, and that's
Hmm.
what we see as Indy Pass. It's that chance to be out there. The reimbursement works well for us. The
Hmm.
program works well, so we haven't felt any type of cannibalization. And anything we can get where we see people coming here that hasn't skied here before is a plus, because
Hmm.
we think our grooming's strong. We think the experience that we provide. I think people understand what they're coming to when they look at our site and everything else. So, we're not trying to portray ourselves as something that we're not. And so we just think the more that we get that out there, the chance we're going to be able to win over people and begin to, grow those rates as we've continued to do each of the, past few years.
I hope it all comes together. If anyone's listening to this stuff by Treetops, find Barry, tell him I sent you. So thanks, Barry. I really appreciate it. This was great. I love learning the stories of the places that were part of my original ski story. I think Treetops is maybe the fifth or sixth place I ever skied at. So important place to me, and I'm really glad to see it thriving even into 2025 and hopefully well beyond. So thanks so much for sharing that with us today, Barry. I really appreciate it. That's Barry Owens, General Manager of Treetops, Michigan. So awesome to connect with you, Barry. Thank you for that. I love seeing small Midwest ski areas thrive, especially ones in the shadows of much bigger competition and much better capitalized competition. Thank you all so much for listening. The podcast will keep flying your way through the rest of 2025 and beyond. I've got some really, really good ones lined up. Some of them I can tell you about. Some of them I'm keeping to myself for now. Big ones to look out for: the leaders of Sugarloaf, Blue Mountain, Ontario, Killington, Taos, Waterville Valley, Stowe, Loveland, and like I said, many, many more. You'll want to subscribe to the Storm Skiing newsletter at stormskiing.com to get those the moment they're live. You can also follow the Storm on X, Instagram, and YouTube at Storm Ski Journal. Until next time, stay well, stay safe. I'm Stuart Winchester, and I'll talk to you again very soon.
The Storm Skiing Podcast is a Quicksilver Films production.